Hi everyone and welcome to another tutorial. My name is Daniel and in this video I'm gonna explain you this brand new camera from Insta360. Today we have a closer look at the Insta360 GO 3S. Now this camera lets you record in 4K with up to 30 frames per second. I've done a really long tutorial already about its predecessor, which was the Insta360 GO 3. So if this video is a bit too short for you, make sure to check out my other tutorial. And if you have any further questions by the end of this tutorial, make sure to leave a comment below. And if you would like to actively support my channel, you will find this camera or the accessories that I use to record this video as a link provided in the video description to support my channel. By the way, I marked also the chapters in the video description below, so if you just want to check out how to connect this camera to your phone or how to switch the resolution or the frame rate, you can find this also in the video description. And now let's get started. So that is the camera, here is the trigger button. Anytime you want to start or stop a video, you need to use this button right here. Here's the power button. If you hold this button here for about 1.5 seconds, the camera will turn on or off. And this quick button on the lower side is to change the video mode into the photo mode. Let's start very quick by introducing the camera itself and how to control it. It's always the same principle. So we are now in a video mode. We're recording this video at the moment in 1080p with 30 frames per second. If we keep that rate, we can continue recording for 2 hours and 27 minutes. Here's a cable which is connected to my power bank because I'm charging at the moment the camera and the action pod because I was taking a long time lapse, so both of them were empty. If I swipe from the right to the left, I can expose manually, and I just saw that this is still in German, so I'm gonna switch this to English. So I can do a manual exposure by setting the shutter speed, the ISO. I can change into a flat profile if I want to. I can use all the great filters which Insta360 offers to make your video look even better without knowing too much about color grading. So you'll find tons of them right here. And if I take a video during bright daylight, I usually go into this one here and set it to -0.3. So the sky is not always overexposed. To change the resolution and the frame rate, I simply push on this button right here and I can record my video now in 4K with up to 30 frames per second. I can leave it in 2.7K and record with 50 frames per second, or I stick to 1080p also recording with 50 frames per second. If you rotate the camera, you will see that you can record also in 9:16 for vertical content, for Reels, TikTok and YouTube Shorts. The stabilization is set to standard, and here's my duration, so I can limit the clip to a certain time, which I usually don't do because I would like to keep it to infinity, and if I want to stop that clip, I can push the trigger button. By the way, I figured out that there's no pause function on this camera here, while on the Insta360 Ace Pro there is a pause function when you record a video. This is not the case using the GO 3S. Here's a tilt fix. What it does, there's a pretty good description to it. You can either decide if you want to keep it on or off. If I want to change the field of view, that is possible by selecting these icons right here. So if you record a lot of action, I would either stick to Ultra or Mega. And if you record buildings and you want to have these straight lines, then I would go for DREP. Here's a zoom function. It's like on the iPhone, it's the same principle. To go into a different mode, I can tap on this icon right here and go, for instance, into the photo mode, where I usually see the same stuff but slightly different. So if I swipe from the right to the left, I can again select my exposure. I can go for manual or full auto. And if I select JPEG plus RAW, I can do post editing. If I keep the raw files, of course, you can do that also using a JPEG file, but it's working much better using a raw file. I can select a timer if I want to capture a picture of myself. I can go for pure shot or simply take a photo using JPEG only without doing any post editing in Adobe Lightroom, for instance. I usually keep my photos in a 4:3 format and rarely in a 16:9 format, and if you rotate the camera in photo mode, it goes into a 9:16 format. To take a picture with a timer of 5 seconds, I push the trigger button on top, and as you can see, the timer runs down, and there's my photo. By the way, I forgot to show you how to take a video actually. So I go back into the video mode, push on that trigger button here for half a second, and then as you can see, the video started to record. I can mark a certain spot in that video and I can stop that video also. Here is an HDR photo that stands for high dynamic range. Anytime you have a lot of shadows and a lot of light, then take your photo in an HDR. However, it's not possible to record an HDR photo using RAW. Jump between modes, I showed you that I can tap on the icon right here, but I can also use this quick button here on the lower side to jump between modes if I wear gloves. That brings us to the next mode, that's interval photo. If you decide to take multiple interval photos, do editing on them and merge them together later on in post for a time-lapse video, for instance, you can do that by going for an interval photo, as simple as that. Starlapse, pretty cool feature. So what the camera does is it's taking a long exposure time. Make sure you're not surrounded by a lot of light. For instance, in a big city like Frankfurt or New York, it doesn't make too much sense because you have a lot of light pollution. But if you're in the Alps or in the Grand Canyon and you want to take a wonderful time lapse of the moving stars, you can select an exposure time of up to 2 minutes if you want to. Then there's loop recording. That is pretty interesting if you are into sports and you want to do a stunt, for instance, but you want to limit your video to a certain time. For instance, in this case, it would be in 4K, 25 frames per second. And I limited the time the camera is recording to 5 minutes. It won't stop at 5 minutes, but it's always limiting the length of the video to 5 minutes. Until you push the trigger button again to stop the video, it goes always for 5 minutes. So it's an endless tape basically that lets you record for 5 minutes. You can change the time also by going here, and you can limit the time to 30 minutes. And if you think that you can make the stunt within a minute, you can limit also the time to a minute. So the benefit of taking a loop video is that you don't have to look for the scene where the stunt was made in a video which is like an hour long, because you limited the video to, for instance, 3 minutes. Then there's slow motion. Every one of you knows what a slow motion video is. So the camera is taking a much higher frame rate, and therefore you get these nice slow motion clips. That is possible in 1080p with up to 200 frames per second, or recording in 2.7K with up to 100 frames per second. Then there is time shift. The difference between a time shift and a time-lapse video is that a time-lapse video is usually taken from a position where the camera is not moving, while on the time shift video, you are moving, the camera is recording a video, it's stabilizing that video, and you can decide later on at what speed you want to play back that video. So if you drive from Los Angeles to New York and you have that camera attached to your car and you don't want to show your audience a video of 4 days in duration, then it's time to take a time shift video. Which brings us to time lapse, where you can decide in which ratio you want to record the video, the interval and the duration. So I usually keep the duration at a time-lapse video to infinity because I would like to stop the video when I think that it's enough, and I don't want to let the camera stop the video, but anyway you can do it if you want to. So you can take a duration of up to 4 hours if you want to. And the interval, it's pretty simple. If you have something that happens really quick, take a short interval. And if you do something that takes a lot of time building a house, for instance, take a long interval. And I can highly recommend anytime you do something that takes a lot of time, connect your camera to a power bank, and I will link you the one that I use in the video description so you don't run out of battery while recording a time-lapse video. Then there's FreeFrame video. If you're not sure whether you want to take a vertical clip or horizontal clip for YouTube, for instance, start recording a FreeFrame video, which lets you later on decide if you would like to take the vertical portion out of it or the horizontal one, and that looks like this. And I started to find this feature quite useful because I said to myself, well, that's cool, because sometimes I have the Insta360 GO 3S on top of my camera to show you in my videos how I've taken the video. And then I can decide later on if I want to take the vertical scene for a YouTube Shorts, for instance, or the horizontal clip for a YouTube video. And then we're back in video mode. If you want to get some presets for your video, you have these right here. So the camera is recommending to take a skiing video in 4K 30 frames per second. You can go hiking, vlog. Here's the recommendation for starlapse, 1440p, 16:9, 60 seconds of exposure time, and you can also take your own preset if you don't want to jump back between video settings all the time, and you can do editing on these clips if you want to, on these presets if you want to. If you swipe from the left to the right, we go into the playback function of this camera. That was a clip that we took together, so I can playback that now. We've done the recording in 1080p with 50 frames per second. I can transfer this clip onto the app of my phone. I can delete this clip from the memory of this camera here. I can select multiple clips like this. I can mark them. I can transfer them to my app. I can delete all three of them from the camera's memory. And if I don't want to do any of that, I just jump back. And then I go out of the menu by sliding these bars. If I swipe from the top to the bottom, I go into the camera's menu. I won't go through all of these points. Here's a rotation lock. I can lock my screen. I can turn off these LEDs here if I want to, because they might disturb you while recording a video behind a window, for instance, and you won't like to see those reflections from the LED on a time-lapse video while the camera was set behind a window. That's one example where I would not use them. Or if you want to hide the camera and you don't want to have that visible somewhere, take the LED off. Here are the signal tones. If I want to lower the display brightness, that's possible right here. Pre-recording, interesting feature. The camera can take a pre-recorded video for either 10, let me just have a look very quick, for 10 to up to 30 seconds. That will obviously take some battery, but you won't miss anything. So if you walk through a city and you see something and you push that trigger button right here to start the video, that might be too late. So you can use that feature here to do a pre-recording, and the camera is always like recording the first 10 seconds before you push the trigger button. Then there is a grid, voice control, gesture control. That's a feature that I showed you already using the Ace Pro. QuickCapture, I can recommend that highly to keep it on. I show you what it does. So a single press will record a video, a double press will record a FreeFrame video. If I have turned off the camera right now, the easy way to turn it on is to use the power button. However, if I want to record a video very quick by not turning on the camera, wait for the start window to open, then there's a simple way to push that trigger button here on top for about 2 seconds. And the camera will turn on automatically, start to record a video, and once you push that trigger button again, it will shut off and save that video before. I'll show you that very quick. So I turn that off. And now I use QuickCapture. That means I push the trigger button here for about 2 seconds. The camera will turn on. It will start to record a video instantly, as you can see now. And if I push this button here, once again, it's saving that video and the camera will turn off. If you won't have selected Quick Capture, then the camera won't do anything if you push that trigger button if it's turned off. So that is what Quick Capture does. You can also say, camera, anytime I push that trigger button when you're off, I would like to go into the photo mode and take a photo, for instance, by selecting the photo mode here on the lower side. So a feature that I like a lot. Timed capture, also pretty nice if you want to take a time lapse of the sunrise in the early morning, but you want to stay in your bed, place the camera on a tripod like this, select time capture, select, let's say, 5:30 in the morning, and then the camera will start to take a time lapse at a 16:9 format at an interval of 4 seconds, and it will do that for 1 hour. Isn't that cool? And then you don't have to wake up. It also works like much earlier in the morning, let's say 2:30. If you want to take a starlapse, for instance, that's possible as well. Well, here are the settings. Here's the firmware, general. I selected auto power off and screen auto sleep to 3 minutes because I don't like it when I have the camera in my hands and it's always turning off. So I selected 3 minutes here for both. I can format the internal storage. Your data will be lost if you push that format button right here. So make sure to back up your files before. Wi-Fi settings. Bluetooth remote is not connected at the moment. There is a Bluetooth remote for that camera. If you wish to buy that, the link is in the video description below. Webcam zoom, so you can use that camera also as a webcam. And that's possible by using a cable which is connected to your computer. Then a screen will open and then you can select whether you want to transfer files or if you wish to use the webcam feature. Here you can change the language. Apple Find Me, so if you have an Apple device like an iPhone or an iPad, you can find this camera, and if you wish to reset the tutorial and seeing all the tips that you've seen at the beginning, you can do that right here or do a factory reset. I will show you very quick how to connect this camera to your phone. In this case, I'm using an iPhone 15 Pro Max. The first thing you need to do is make sure to download the Insta360 app, which is available for free. It's about 800 megabytes in file size. It looks like this at the moment. Make sure to turn on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. The connection between those two devices is absolutely for free because I got asked this question quite a few times. So there are no costs involved because this camera creates its own Wi-Fi network and therefore you don't have to pay anything. Make sure to tap on the app. If you're connecting this camera for the first time to your phone, make sure to turn on your camera before doing so. Then the app is looking for this camera. It will pop up immediately and then you just need to confirm it on your camera once that you want to connect it to this phone. There's a new firmware. I'm not going to download it. I'll do that later. The question I get asked quite a few times is how to get rid of the watermark that is being put on your footage after exporting video, for instance, or a photo. Go to settings. Use this toggle switch right there, which says watermark, and then you can get rid of the watermark. If you want to have access to the camera, make sure to tap on this icon right here, and then we start with the photo mode. It's pretty simple, as I showed you already on this camera. If I want to take a picture right now, I simply push that button, and now the camera has taken a photo. With the remaining capacity of the internal storage, I can take another 2,492 photos. Here's the battery level of the camera, here's the battery level of the action pod. If I want to change the format, let's say 16:9, 1:1, 4:3, or if I want to take a panoramic photo, that's possible by selecting one of these icons right here. Here I can switch the field of view, so I can go to Mega View, Ultra Wide or DREP. If I want to select a different file type, JPEG plus RAW, JPEG or PureShot, I can do it right here. If I want to zoom in, I can push that button right there. I can also expose my images manually by tapping on auto, and then I go into the manual mode. Here I can select the appropriate shutter speed, the ISO, or the white balance. If I tap on these sliders right there, I can select a timer if I want to take a picture of myself. If I want to switch between different modes, I can do that by just selecting the mode, or if I use the 3 bars on the lower right side, I have all the different modes available on one page. So if I want to take a video, I can select the video mode, and the principle of using this app is always the same. On top left you get the same indications, and if I want to take now a video with a filter by Insta360 or choose a flat profile, that's possible by selecting these circles up here. If I want to change the resolution or the frame rate, I can do it on top right. If I want to show a histogram, if I want to enable a horizontal grid or GPS, I can use these toggle switches right there. To start a video, it's pretty simple, just push that red button right there. And now you can see the time is running. If I want to stop the video, a pause function is not available by the way, I can use this button right there. If I want to expose my video manually, that's also possible by going into the manual mode. And here you have some other features as well, like exposure compensation, face detection, quality, white balance, and so on. So if I want to take now, for instance, a time lapse, that's super easy because you can go into the time lapse mode. You can select the interval duration. In this case, it would be 1 minute. Recording length, and I can also go for a manual exposure. So that the principle is always the same when you use the app. Now let's go to album, and as you can see here are the files that we took together. Let's say I don't need these files here anymore. I select them, and now I can delete them from the internal storage of this camera. I can download these files onto the app, I can highlight them, or I can share them straight away with my friends. Let's say I don't need them anymore, I can delete them. The Insta360 GO 3S does not need to be in the action pod, so you can take it out, stick it to any metallic surface, and you can control the camera itself also just using your phone. Let's say I don't need these files either, I can delete them. And here is a time lapse that I took yesterday, or let's select this one here. I took this one this morning, and you can see it's already animated. That's pretty cool because a time lapse itself doesn't look too spectacular, to be honest. But if you have it animated, it looks even better. So as you can see, this clip now is a time lapse which I took this morning, and it's already zooming out. And I can select also different types of animations, and as you can see, then you can export it straight from the camera onto your phone with the animation included. So if I want to take this one, pretty simple, I select it. I can also trim the video by selecting the cutter right here, and I can export this clip straight onto my phone. In this case, I can go for 4K as a resolution, or I can downgrade it to 1080p if I just want to share it with some of my friends in WhatsApp, for instance. I can select a higher bitrate, but my frame rate is limited to 30 frames per second because it only allows me to take a time lapse with up to 30 frames per second. That was the Insta360 app. And maybe you hear the difference now. Here is the wind protection, and as you can see over there, the flag is waving, so a lot of wind is blowing now straight into the microphone of the Insta360 GO 3S. So the wind is blowing all from this side here into the microphone of my Insta360 GO 3S. Without its wind protection, the internal microphone of my Insta360 GO 3S. So guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial about this brand new camera, the Insta360 GO 3S. If you do have any further questions, make sure to leave a comment below. And as I said at the beginning, if you would like to support my channel, you will find the camera or the accessories also as a link provided in the video description. See you next time und tschüss.